This has been an absolutely go slow process with the painting I'm planning right now. Be a little bit complicated. It's telling the story of the of Swan Lake, mainly of the black swan. But I wanted it to have a feeling of good versus evil, so I'm trying to incorporate the white swan as well. This is a really neat page to have. It's aspect ratio chart of 2 to 3 and all of the sizes that go in there. I'm using the 3 to 4 proportion and decided that in order to get her face big enough that I wouldn't mind painting it, that it's going to be 24 by 30. This is one of the few times when I have wanted to get my drawing completely worked out on tracing paper, which I will then transfer to my sanded paper before I start painting. Because there's just so many things in there, and I want to get it right or close to it before I tackle the color. So the main thing is I have tracing paper that is 24 by 30, which will be my finished painting size. And I then marked the paper with a ruler with my composition lines. So the first thing is to go from corner to corner, and then that gives you a center point right here. I've also drawn half and half lines, and then the most important part of it is I used another line going from corner to the midpoint, and the same thing on both sides. So that the theory is, and I really do believe it, is that any time that you have intersecting lines, then that creates a natural focal point for the viewer. It'll lead your eye into the painting. So what I've done is I'm placing her eye on this cross right here. There would actually be a third line if I drew it connecting these points right here. So that's an ideal place for her eye, and it works well with the other elements that I'm going to have in the composition. And from there, I've just started freehand drawing the key elements. I might not put in in fact, I'm sure I won't put in every little detail. That'll come in the painting. But I can see that the extension of her arm, her hand will come to about right here, and then her other hand is right in here. And some swans will be intersecting with her in the bottom, and a few other little neat things that I want to put in the composition. But the main thing is that as I'm looking at my reference photo for her, I can also use these lines I've put in here like a grid. So where does this line fall in relation to this grid that's on the paper? It helps a little bit with the drawing, but yet it still keeps you doing a freehand, spontaneous drawing and reacting to what's happening rather than what's just set there in stone on your reference photo. So a lot of good things about this. Some of these other points will help me in the placement of the other swans. Continuing to make my sketches for this narrative piece, determining the direction of the light, staying with my diagonal lines. I'm thinking that the background behind her head is going to be pretty well plain. Trying to make it recede. And this area is a lake, will be a lake for the swans to be seeded into, grounded into. And so much black in this area. And up in here, it's got a lot of dark colors in it, and mainly almost a black and white theme. This is U-Art sanded paper, 24 by 30. Graphite paper from a roll that I purchased online, and my freehand drawing with the composition worked out. So I want to transfer my drawing to the U-Art paper. So the story that this painting is telling, or that this composition is telling, is probably the most important part of what I'm doing. I have this beautiful young lady who did a Photoshop with me, dressed as the Black Swan in the Swan Lake Ballet. I chose this pose that she's in from the many photos that I did because her hand motion looks as if she's saying, "Stop, go away."
Oh, goodness. You're going to film yourself for it, huh?
I have to call it intuitive response. When I had my composition totally worked out and I liked it on paper, I transferred it to my canvas, my working paper. And then I didn't like the placement of the swans. They didn't work. So I'm just having to respond to what I saw and mainly what I feel like I'm trying to accomplish in this painting. And that is a representation of the Black Swan from Swan Lake Ballet. And she's as if she's pushing away and saying no to what? To the white swan. So on this side, I wanted the Black Swan, an actual representation of the swan, to represent her and to represent, what might be bad. I have the swan's body down here, very low, and the neck coming right here. It didn't work, so I brushed it out with my foam brush, put some tracing paper over my first lay-in of pastels, and now I'm just going to use this charcoal and kind of mark in where I think something would work better. And when you're working from imagination, trying to piece together figments of what your vision is for the painting, it's quite difficult, more so than if you're just working straight from a photograph. So on this side, I'm going to represent the white swan. I just haven't decided. I'll have to play with the charcoal, which is wonderful, because if you don't like what you've got, you can just erase it out with your hand and then redraw it. So it's great being able to do this. So, working on that next. I'm using a reference photo where the model had light coming in from multiple directions, and it makes it very hard to do the portrait, do her face. So I'm using this wonderful app, and I'll put the link on the video, that you can adjust the direction of the light as well as the intensity of it, and see the planes of the face, the way they would normally be lit in that particular direction. And so I'm working on her face now. I have these big shapes marked in. Now I'm going into the smaller shapes. And granted, this is a generic face. Her face structure would be different, but nevertheless, this lets me see where the very darkest planes, medium value planes, and then the light planes would be, and I can adjust that then when I start to apply my regular pastels. But it gives me a good reference point. This shadow begins slightly above the nose, right about here, which ties in perfectly with that. Maybe that kind of angle, coming on down to her lips, to the edge of the mouth, and on into the chin. So I know that this is the hollow part of her face. And these will just be general guidelines. I'm making, of course, these are the darkest parts, as well as that far corner, so I've done that over here. And this one, pretty dark right here, coming down. With a young model, fair skin, it's she's not going to have any of these hard edges. These are simply guides for me to be able to determine my values when I start adding the color, rather than guessing, as I had tried to do, rather than guessing where the value shifts would be. A little bit of dark right there. I already had her eyes drawn in, so I'm going to keep that. This part. And some light hitting right here. Right here. It's a fun app to play with, even if you're not going to use it for your drawing. It gives you a better understanding of the structure of the face, uh, the highest edges, the ones further out, what to do with the shapes, where does the ear line up. Um, a lot of good things that you can learn from this app. The app that I am working with um, for these planes on the face is Head Study by Stephen Bowman Artwork. That's Bauman. Um, it's you can see the head form in a sculptured effect, or in a skeleton, or in a muscles, having muscles running through the face. The lighting and the angle of the head can be adjusted in many different ways, as well as the lighting. Really do recommend it. Um, because my model had lighting from so many different sources, as well as now in this painting, I'm including other elements, and I would like to get the light source the same for all of them. So it's a little bit difficult if you don't have good references to work from. So this has helped me tremendously. It's a lot of fun to play with. Um, I do recommend it. Head Study is the name of the app. other thing that I've had to change, I loved her pose when it was by itself. She has this arm extended as if she's saying, "Stop, get away." And then she had this arm draped across her front with a very expressive hand gesture going across. And it kind of interfered with everything. So I brushed it out as well, and I'll go back through my stock of photos of her and find one that has a more elegant pose that I can use on this side, knock out some of this negative space of the swan. I can change things around. I don't have to go with my original concept. I can make it anything I want it to be. And I'm referring to it as an intuitive response. You've got something you've worked hard on, you thought you had it planned, and it doesn't work, it's not doing what you want it to do. So change your mind, fix it. This is my original swan on the paper, and I wanted it to be this size. But later I added the swan that is on the bottom of the paper, and much more forward than this swan. So the sizes don't relate. That meant that even though I liked this swan and what I had done with it, to make it be more in the distance, I have to make her smaller. So I'm brushing off some of the pastel that I put to create that big body. And seeing what I can do to make her smaller. It's not that difficult to do with pastel. It's such a beautiful, forgiving medium. So I'm just going to cover up some of the color. This won't be the final. This is a hard pastel. And I will be going over that with pan pastel and a little bit of my metallic pastel. I have this beautiful white. That I can cover up so beautifully. And I think all of these changes, sometimes you really hate to make a change this far into a painting, but when it's bothering you, that's the thing to do. Just attack it. Take it away. Something a little darker right there. It's a little bit darker gray. I don't have to, these edges of the swan, I don't want those to be very sharp. But I do need some value changes. And these new pastels do not deposit a lot of pastel on the painting, so it's very easy to go over them with the softer brands of pastels. I'm going to take this edge, this little sharp edge right here, and try to go up closer to that orange and black bill. I don't know if I can take some of this off. No, it's not coming off very well. This is a different surface, so the pastel's not erasing really well. Here. But this is an iridescent. So I can just carve into that neck to make it smaller. A little bit more, honey. Oh, you know what just happened? I dropped my favorite white iridescent, and it crumbled to pieces. I think I have the original stick. Oh, that's much better. I think I have the original stick still in a big piece of it in my set. Hopefully I do. Okay, so she's coming out smaller now, and I can get some of this off. I may decide to just let this be part of the background in there. That's okay. I don't know. Take it all out. I can always paint back over it. See how easily that this is a Great American iridescent or metallic gray, silver. And it just goes back over that so beautifully. And actually, I want her feathers to be fluffed out and angry, not smooth like a swan normally is. Maybe she's coming down to defend this one, or just expressing her disapproval of the black swan and her antics. Now she's, her head is a little bit smaller than the one in front, and she has more realism as the one in front. And I'm going to try this pastel pencil that is a magenta on top of that orange to create that darker area that the sun, the moon, the light is not hitting. love, hate, jealousy, confusion, fight, and probably a lot more adjectives. Those are the words that might define the ballet Swan Lake. And I have to assure you that as I was painting this portrait, I felt all of those same things. I hated it at times. I was confused about what I needed to do. I loved it many times and loved portions of it and hated others. I was jealous, yes, of other artists who are renowned artists and I believe always paint superbly. Their work is just excellent, and I aspire to be able to do what they do. So, as I was going through this painting, a composition that is entirely from imagination, which, by the way, I don't have any, those feelings resounded all the way through my head. In this composition, the only thing that I had a reference for was her face, her hands, and that's about it. The rest of it, I just tried to make up, and some of it changing as I went along. The black swan, representing the jealous swan, someone who wanted to take her place. It went through many changes, many different configurations, and the feathers were a last addition. I felt like it needed something to show the conflict, the fight, the feathers flowing, flying everywhere. And so I had them in black and white, but you know, the painting is basically neutral grays. So the feathers didn't stand out, so what could I do? I had used a magenta pastel pencil around her eyes, very delicately. So I decided perhaps I could tie that in by using those colors in the feathers. I painted this one first, and it's one of the things I fell in love with. So, you know, should I do them all like that? Some of them black and white. And so I did both. I left some of them white, black, and then the very colorful ones that are still flying down. Does it work? Does any of the painting work? I don't know. I lost my I lost my objectivity about it. It seems like a decade ago, but several weeks ago when I've been working on it. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'd sure like your input, your opinion. It matters to me as much as your support does.